Sports Professor Rick Horrow, welcome to Beyond the Scoreboard, the inside look at the trillion-dollar business of sports. Big as it gets this week, the NHL's 100th anniversary celebration at the All-Star Weekend in Los Angeles. AFC, NFC champions, New England Patriots, Atlanta Falcons head to Super Bowl 51 in Houston. Waste Management Open. NBA looks to All-Star Weekend down the road. College football ready for combines and drafts and a whole host of other things. And obviously, it's a big deal this week. This week on Beyond the Scoreboard, Sean Henry, the president of the Nashville Predators, who's had firsthand experience on putting on an all-star game. Word to the wise for people in LA this week, what the all-star game last year in Nashville did for the city, did for the Predators, and the like. We'll hear from him. We'll hear from Trenny Kusnierek this week. This week on Beyond the Scoreboard. Be back in a minute. Welcome back to Beyond the Scoreboard. I'm the sports professor, Rick Horrow. Teach sports business and sports law at Harvard Law School. Did a lot of deals with the NFL, NASCAR, and others. Clearly, the business is a trillion-dollar business, and it's only getting bigger. But if downtown Los Angeles doesn't wash away by next weekend after record rains, the city, the Staples Center, and the host LA Kings look forward to hosting the NHL's best during the All-Star break. Yes, sunny skies predicted for All-Star Weekend, comprising the annual skills contest, 3-on-3 All-Star Game, and mobile Centennial Fan Arena, featuring the league's museum truck, an interactive virtual Zamboni ride station, photo ops with the Stanley Cup, and the All-Star Game in its second season as a division-based 3-on-3 mini-tournament with the $1 million prize on the line takes place Sunday, and the All-Star Weekend takes on extra importance this year. It's one in a series of year-long events celebrating NHL's centennial milestone. Major highlight, Friday's recognition of the 100 greatest NHL players of all time, including the great one, Wayne Gretzky, an ambassador to this 100th year event and to this event itself. And like most All-Star contests, the NHL's annual celebration, all about exciting and entertaining the fans. And next week's Hollywood-adjacent extravaganza, no different. Just expect more famous faces behind the glass. It certainly helps the community. The person who can really give us some perspective on what this event means is Nashville's president, Sean Henry. He was on point last year when the Predators hosted the All-Star Game, one of the first large hockey events to come to the Sun Belt, so to speak. A great success, and some say that the community and economic impact and the excitement and season tickets may have propelled the Predators to the Stanley Cup Western Finals against the Sharks. Nobody really knows if that's directly related, but certainly it is important for an all-star game to show its best face in a community. Boston's had one. Boston will have one. It's important to note how LA does this year and how Nashville did last year. Here's Sean Henry. Rick Horrow in the boardroom. We have just an absolute treat today because we have had our fill of hockey executives. But this guy's not a hockey executive. This guy is an entrepreneur. He is SUNY New York educated, but he is very practical. And more than that, the guy's been with everybody. He's been with the Lightning hoisting the cup in 2004. He's been an NHL favorite executive. And now the CEO, president, grand poobah of the Nashville Predators, Sean Henry. How's that for an intro?
It's pretty good, but don't say SUNY like I overcame some disease.
Well, but
Mr. Harvard, huh?
Yeah, Mr. Harvard. But but you did overcome the fact that it was a fairly pedestrian education. All right, the interview's done. You have survived and thrived, notwithstanding the fact that there are a whole lot of people who have gone to Ivy League schools who feel like they're so arrogant. You'd use that as an advantage. I bet you use that as an advantage.
Oh, there's no doubt. You know, the commissioner of the SEC, Greg Sankey,
right.
He's also a SUNY guy.
Wow, okay, very cool.
And we talk about that all the time, that our education is a little different than a lot of people in our similar positions.
Right, and the interesting thing is, apropos to who's done interviews with me before, Gary Bettman and Rob Manfred apparently were in the first were together at the Labor Relations School at Cornell. So we talked about how they could have gone to better Ivies or different Ivies, and of course neither one talked to me now as a result. So thank you very much for doing this interview.
That's
very cool. So first, let's talk about life in the business. You've been with a couple of organizations, and I guess what they have in common is they're Sun Belt oriented, but you clearly have been diverse in the league since '99.
Yeah, I came in the league in '99. We being the Pistons, bought the Lightning in '99. Mr. Davidson, one of the greatest owners in the history of sports, bought the Pistons in '72. Was really the first man to set up business up around the team and built his own arena, ran them all together as one. The success was the Palace of Auburn Hills, won 2 championships the first 2 years it was open. And I was fortunate enough to go there when I was 21 years old. And that's how I kind of grew up in the business, with a customer, first approach. What can you do for a sponsor? How do you engage with them? How do you leverage the passion of your fans for a brand and continuing forward?
And your life has been a series since then of collections of best practices, I assume. Do you think that it is easier today to run an organization than it was years ago?
Well, I didn't run one years ago, so hard to say, but I do think it gets easier, balanced with some difficulties. When I say easier, it's so much, you collaborate, you so much more quickly, you see what people are doing, you can reach out and call the Blues and say, what'd you do there, why, did it work? Where years ago, you used to have to wait till every Friday, some piece of paper to come out and tell you what people were doing, and a lot of those articles were vanity. Now you get to see what people are doing in real time, you get to connect with them in real time. The negative side of that is all your partners, your sponsors, your performers, everyone also gets to see that and say, why aren't we doing what everyone's doing, and whatever that is?
So between, just short-circuiting or short-cutting for a couple of minutes, between '99 and the 5 years later, you were part of the organization, but the 5 years later was a seminal moment because you won the Stanley Cup in Tampa in '04.
That's right. When we bought the Lightning, I don't know if there was a worse team in all sports. Fortunately, we had the Buccaneers in our city and the Rays. We really were 3 of the worst teams in all sports right there in the
Have the Buccaneers
city.
won a game yet?
I think they've won a
couple.
few.
Yeah.
I am a Bucks fan. I am a Titans fan.
Yeah.
But the odd thing happened is, we linked arms a little bit with the Buccaneers. And we looked at each other, looked at the city, and said, when we're a good team and you're a good team, great things will happen for both of us. The Rays decided to stay on the island that they were on. Inside of a couple of years, we went from 17 wins that year to the Stanley Cup in just 4 or 5 years. The Buccaneers went from, I think, 3 wins to win the Super Bowl in the same time period. So they won. We won the year later, and it changed what Tampa was. And I've always looked at that as a really nice moment of how do we continue to do that. Because a year later, we had the lockout, wiped out the season. We're defending champs. Everyone always says, what an awful thing to happen. And I always say, well, if you have to do a lockout, having that cup with you for the year is a nice way to do it. But it enabled us, the way we connected with that community, enabled us to ride through that lockout and actually come out of it stronger as a franchise, not just a league, but as a team.
So lockout means that you have to build a lot more to sustain what you have, which is a difficult thing to do in Toronto and Montreal and New York, but an almost impossible thing to do in Tampa. I mean, how do you do it? Yeah, you had the cup, but it had to be more than just here's the cup.
Yeah, and again, it goes down to, I love when people say you're a non-traditional city. They always say that like it's a knock, and I say, thank goodness I'm in a non-traditional city, because it does allow us to do things other teams don't do. There's no legacy. We get to move forward and invent our own legacy. And we built such an incredible bond in Tampa with our fans. We're doing the same thing here, that everything almost supersedes just hockey. And I hate to say it because that's everything that we do. It's the center of it all. But we made the St. Pete Times Forum the busiest building in the country. We beat Madison Square Garden as the busiest venue in America. Coming out of the lockout, we led the league in attendance in Tampa. And we did that because we really built better bonds throughout the lockout. We got in the community more, didn't lay anyone off. We had some salespeople painting walls, but it also showed them what the whole organization was about. So we came out of it in stronger fashion, and we did the same thing here in Nashville. When we went to the lockout, came out of it stronger because, again, we didn't lay anyone off. We had such deep ties to the community already. We had an opportunity to make them even deeper.
The fact that the weather is closer to Tampa than it is to Saskatchewan here in Nashville, we're doing this interview in Nashville, is an obvious issue. But what did you learn from Tampa that made the job here easier when you came here in 2010?
Again, I always go back to the relationship with the city, the public side, your fans, and your partners, meaning your sponsors and suite holders. If you connect with them in a very sincere fashion, very honest about your problems, very honest about how you're going to approach addressing them and where you want to go, build very aggressive goals, get people to buy into them. Our goal here is very simple. Be the best sports franchise built around a Stanley Cup championship team, period. Anything short of that, we didn't succeed. If we achieve one and not the other, We have to keep working. And once we achieve both in the same year, we got to go back to the same blueprint. And, when you do that, and we did it in Tampa, people laughed at us when we rolled that plan out, but then we did it.
Yeah.
When we rolled it out here, people laughed at us. But, our chairman, Tom Segrin, he believes in setting aggressive goals and then telling him what you need to achieve them. And even if you fail, you still end up in a higher place than you ever thought you could have been.
One win away from the finals last year, and then who knows what would have happened. And so the bottom line is there's nothing in the future that makes you not believe that you're going to get there again like you did in Tampa.
That's it exactly. I remember our former coach, Barry Trotz, after Tom became chairman, said something that has stuck with me to this day. He said, that man has removed the word no from our vocabulary. And he said, we're the same as every other team. Our goal is to be better than every other team. But let's take every excuse away and move forward. But you're right. You're one win away. You're 2 Game 7s in that first and second round. It builds memories, and that's what's important. We're not quite 20 years old yet. It's important for that kid that's graduating college now. He or she, they don't remember a Predator team not being here. What we need to add to their filing cabinet, if you will, are a lot more memories with their family and friends, and that's what this season's about.
Well, and so CEO December 1, 2015?
December 1, 2000.
Is that right? Is that when you were appointed?
Actually, officially, I think it was January 1st, but we knew this was going to happen the day I took the job in 2010. When Jeff Kogan and I came here together, this was the plan, that Jeff would be here about 5 years, and then I'd replace him if something didn't go awry, and knock on wood. It didn't. Hopefully it won't. And
it won't. And you're just reading all of your material with the bio on it, December 1, 2015, including a really kind of cool picture with you and a growth. Either you lost your razor or you decided to grow a playoff beard at the time. But you looked really good compared to everybody else in that staff. So the bottom line is not too long after that, you have your All-Star game, which is an incredibly successful event with all concerned. Everybody perceived it that way. How easy was it to put on an all-star game in a city that doesn't have hockey roots that go back 500 years?
For us, it's easy because Nashville's a big event town.
Sure.
It really is. But for us, the importance of getting the all-star game was to engage with this entire community and not just serve the 17,000 people that would be inside enjoying the skills or the all-star game. Not have everything cloistered in a convention center where only a handful of people could see things, but blow it out, open it up. And we defied the weather. We told Mother Nature, we're coming after you. And we did 35 concerts outside, had 20, 30, 40,000 people enjoying them outside, outdoor skating rink, outdoor park. And really, we told Nashville, this is yours. This is a great league. Come experience the 100 years of history. Be part of it. And the goal is to reach a few people that haven't been to a game yet by showing them entertainment. And we were lucky. We had 8 inches of snow the week before the All-Star game. And then it was about 65 degrees the whole week of.
And you intimidated Mother Nature, and she went away, basically.
She backed down. She saw that big slap shot coming. She got out of the way. But, even the storyline, we reinvented the game with Gary and the other owners and the players and went to the 3-on-3 tournament to almost, solidify where we were. We always said, it's such a great weekend that sometimes the game, because the sheer nature of our game doesn't allow for a very competitive all-star game or what people are used to. Going to a 3-on-3 tournament, the players really, really cared. They had fun with it. And then the storyline with John Scott really allowed people to leave here thinking, wow, that was incredible.
And the best swag in the business. I know you gave away little guitars welcoming people to Nashville, and every owner to this day talks about that positively.
It's fun. When you have Gibson in your backyard and Jack Daniels in your backyard, you can do some pretty cool things, and they were all over it, and that's what was fun.
Just a couple more, obviously. The whole idea of sports and entertainment is important in certain cities, very important to you. So Dirk Bentley was involved in the All-Star Game. I know that there was a whole lot of discussion early on about the logo and country music and all. How important is that going forward?
Oh, it's everything. When the franchise got here almost 20 years ago, we knew we had to interplay with music. It's the Music City. What we never thought then, and I'm shocked every day by it, are the sheer volume of stars that are in our building for every single event, every hockey game. We have a row of suites. You have CAA, William Morris, Reba McEntire, Carrie Underwood, all suites right next to each other. So on any given night, you'll have 8, 10, 12, 15 Grammy winners, watching our game. And then in our crowd, you have so many different legends of music, and not just country, but all levels. You look at our interactions, our video stand-ups, from Alice Cooper to Vince Gill. Everyone plays off of what they do. Tim McGraw celebrates our goal song, along with so many. It's just a fun experience, and at every intermission, a concert breaks out on our stage.
Well, and it helps. The Bridgestone Arena certainly helps, and your management relationship with them too. 2 quickies finally: youth hockey, the Industry Growth Fund, the NHL really happy to kind of target Nashville as one of those cities to grow youth hockey. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, when we built our first rink 2 years ago, I guess it's been, knowing that the IGF was kind of on the horizon or hoping. And again, when that came about, it really solidifies what we talk about, the partnership with the players and the owners and teams. This brings it to a whole new level where we have kids skating that never thought about it before. We're outfitting kids, from get out and learn programs to learn to skate to learn to play, where we're taking the dollar obstacle away from kids, taking that excuse away, and introducing this great game to a whole generation that never would have played before. And we're on the verge of announcing a couple of new rink constructions, which is really exciting. We have ideally, we're going to build 10 new rinks in the next 5, 6, 8, 10 years throughout the state to continue to do what we do, because we're not in Saskatchewan.
Right.
We need to make our own ice.
And again, impact all over Tennessee. Finally, what's next for Sean Henry?
Well, hopefully we hit that ultimate goal, and that's the number one venue in America, which we are already the ranking one. Polestar has nominated us again. We are the reigning arena of the year, but that means nothing if we don't win the cup, and just keep pushing forward for that. And in the end, 5 years from now, 8 years from now, 10 years from now on, our fans and our partners, and most importantly, the city, to look back at what we built and say, wow, look at what we did. They said they were going to do it. They did it. And that's all you want, people to understand and respect your goal.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sean Henry, a true visionary, even if his golf game is not up to par. Rick Horrow, speak with you in a couple of minutes. Thanks to Sean Henry for giving us some perspective on what it takes to do an All-Star weekend. Tremendous impact, tremendous workload. The benefits clearly are there, even though the work is absolutely astronomical. Look for a similar success at the Staples Center, LA Live, and everywhere else this weekend, especially with the 100th anniversary. There are other issues that happened this week, not just the All-Star game heading to the Super Bowl. Target making a heavy investment in MLS after signing a multi-year deal to become an official partner of the ever-growing domestic soccer league. The deal represents Target's largest ever push in team sports. As part of the deal, they have airtime during league broadcasts on ESPN, Fox, and Univision, in-stadium exposure, on-site activation. The largest supporter of soccer in the U.S., or one of them, is this deal with Target and the MLS. Minnesota-based retailer also linked a deal with MLS expansion club Minnesota United, putting its logo on the front of the team's jersey. Minnesota United begins play in 2018, moving into its own stadium later on. And here's my take. It's good for the MLS to secure additional corporate partners, especially a premier consumer brand like Target. Television, stadium, ownership, market share, corporate partnerships continue to be the backbone of all sports leagues, including the MLS. How about Philly? Defined by lackluster and embarrassing on-court performances over the past few years, the Sixers finally starting to turn things around, and their merchandise sales reflect that. Sixers ranked fourth among all NBA teams in local merchandise sales over the past 7 days, just behind the Warriors, Cavs, and Bulls. Leading the way for the Sixers, big man Joel Embiid. His jersey was the fifth best seller over that same period of time. Sixers ranked in the league's top 10 of merchandise sales since the beginning of 16-17. They hold the largest year-over-year increase during that time frame in the NBA this season. And similar to their increase in merchandise sales, the Sixers have seen a 10% increase in home attendance from year to last year to this year. 83% increase in ticket sales per home contest represents the highest attendance the Sixers have had since Allen Iverson. And here's my take. Sixers have had a tremendous history and an intense and avid following. Julius Erving, Wilt Chamberlain, and Iverson, and others. And it'll clearly benefit the NBA when and if the Sixers, Lakers, and Knicks become good again. How about Mexico? The surge of the U.S. dollar bolstered the domestic economy, but detrimental to many major Mexican soccer clubs. Liga MX clubs have been negatively affected by the strengthening of the dollar because league's expenses are in dollars and revenues are in pesos. And over the past 4 years, the U.S. dollar increased its value by almost 10 pesos, made things difficult for football clubs searching for different ways to deal with the devaluation. For example, if a player was bought for $8 million in 2013, the equivalent in Mexican currency was 102 million pesos. Now, the same cost in dollars, about 176 million pesos. The reason the clubs have their revenues in pesos is because most money that the clubs receive, with the exception of TV contracts, come in pesos, ticket sales, food, and beverages. And here's my take. The cooperative sports connections between Mexico, Canada, and the U.S. will no doubt continue as parties explore the feasibility of a 2026 World Cup bid. But in the meantime, each country struggles with its competitive balance as it reflects on exchange rate, facilities, player transfers, and the like. How about Golden State? They've broken ground on their new state-of-the-art arena in San Fran. The Chase Center resembles Cirque du Soleil more than it did a construction job, that opening ceremony. The site where the arena being built is city's Mission Bay neighborhood. Though it was originally planned on being erected at Piers 30 and 32 until lawsuits stopped its plan on its tracks. Chase Center projected to open in 2019, a capacity of 18,000 seats. San Francisco Mayor Ed Lee and others at the groundbreaking emphasized the arena is being built on private property without a public subsidy, a rarity in pro sports. And Warriors co-owner Joe Lacob said, "We're totally good to go. It's not surreal anymore. It's real." And here's my take. Lacob and his team have done an incredible job securing the arena and the commitment with an intense and politically charged environment. And as for Oakland, by the way, the pressure heats up. They have lost one team. The football team files for relocation, and the baseball team looking for other sites. Game on, Oakland. And finally, just down the coast in Southern California, San Diego, Wayne Gretzky is not the only sports greatest of all time in Southern Cal this next weekend. Tiger Woods set to make his 2017 PGA Tour debut at the Farmers in Torrey Pines. Newly revamped Torrey Pines. Rough lengthening reins not needed. New partnerships and resulting fan amenities. The course is hard, but certainly fan-friendly. Local favorite Phil Mickelson, Tiger Woods, others on the course, and tournament director Phil Ripa recruited extra marshals for duty this year. He also anticipates doubling the 22 million viewers the tournament enjoyed last year. While the tournament might not break attendance and viewership records, one of its premier charities, Boys to Men Mentoring, a local program for fatherless teenage boys, once again has the opportunity to, get this, break the world record for number of surfers on one wave during Saturday's One Wave Challenge. And here's my take. Innovative fan experiences and abundant philanthropy, hallmarks of the PGA Tour. And Torrey Pines event is no exception. Watching a healthy Tiger Woods and Mickelson, only part of the fun. And those are just a few of the issues that are happening this week. If you want to see the whole list of 15, look at our published list, 15 to watch, on csnne.com. Now the favorite part of the show, we do Point Counterpoint with CSN regular and certainly pundit extraordinaire, anchor extraordinaire. She's got opinions of her own. Trenny Kusnierek talking Olympics and talking Roger Goodell. Time in the show again for Point Counterpoint. Big issues. There are two sides to all of the issues. It's clearly not just my side because it's trying to be factual, but there are opinions, and thankfully, Trenny Kusnierek is there on the other side to give her expert, intelligent, there it is, take it or leave it opinion. How's that?
Perfect. I like it. I'm going to put that on a business card.
Yeah, good. You can't fit the whole thing on there. You're going to have one of those super duper business cards, but maybe I'll write it for you. So let's go through a couple of issues which are probably the biggest issues that we focus on as far as mega events are concerned. The Super Bowl and the Olympic Games. Let's take the Olympics first. Longtime sponsors continue to abandon the USOC. InBev is the latest example. They're not renewing. When you think of Anheuser-Busch, we can get into the Super Bowl commercials. They spend tons and tons of dollars, but they're joining Hilton, Citi, TD Ameritrade, and AT&T as sponsors not renewing with the USOC. Might be a little bit of Korea after this one, which is not too glamorous. Might be a little bit of controversy. Might be a little bit of funding. What say you? What's the reason?
I just think that it has to do with, I don't know if it has so much to do with, I know the reasoning that InBev said was that, that because it's so far away, they're worried about maintaining fan engagement during these, overseas games. I don't entirely buy into that, Rick, for the biggest reason being the Australian Open is taking place right now. And, you wake up in the morning and you can watch the Australian Open. You can put it on when you're having breakfast. And now with so many multimedia platforms, there's so many different ways to get your advertising across that I can't imagine that something being far away is that much of a deterrent when all the highlights that are shown, all the primetime stuff, your advertising is front and center on that. To me, I think this is just more of where is the Olympics going, and do we like, maybe not so much what the USOC is doing, but what the IOC is doing, and what all of the sort of controversies that have been clouding the Olympics. That to me, I think is, in my opinion, probably the bigger issue for these major sponsors, saying, do we want to tie up all these dollars in something that every time, leading up to an Olympics, it's far less about the games and far more about what's happening, to the lowest levels of the lowest socioeconomic levels in these countries. What is happening environmentally? What is happening with, homeless, the poor, the displaced? In Russia, it was animals, pollution in Rio. There's always something else that's around it, and I just wonder if it's a bad tie-in in terms of brand names for these American companies.
Well, obviously these are also international companies. Some are American, but Hilton, AT&T fundamentally do business all across the globe, as you said. And so maybe it's a little bit of that. One would hope we have a Olympics with a positive legacy attached to it pretty soon. But there is something, I think, to the far-flung notion of if you're going to have Korea in 2018, and then 2020 in Japan, and 2022 in China, winter, summer, winter, respectively, and you want to activate, you want to get people over there, you want to get some hospitality going. That's probably not the only reason, but I think that's a big reason. So 2024, again, remember how easily we forgot. Marty Walsh, the mayor of Boston, said, let's figure out how to get a better, more compact Olympics. They changed the bid. LA is now bidding against Budapest and Paris, for 2017. And so if LA gets it, and if LA runs one of their typical Olympics that doesn't require a whole lot of money and in terms of profit, the legacy is good, maybe the sponsors come back.
But let me go back to what you said about, everything happening now in South Korea, Japan, and China, and just not having that engagement. But if you're a worldwide company, which all of these companies are, including Anheuser-Busch, I mean, I've been lots of places overseas where it doesn't matter if you're in India or Africa or if you're, in Lowell, Massachusetts, you can order a Bud Light somewhere. That kind of international, particularly the very dense population size of all of those cities and of that region, and how in tune those regions are on social media and social engagement. That's why it doesn't. I guess for me, it doesn't compute why it would not be fiscally smart, fiscally responsible for these companies to continue to attach their name to the Olympics. Wouldn't going to far Southeast Asia and parts of Asia where the largest concentration of world population is and the largest growing middle and upper class, wouldn't that be beneficial to these companies?
Absolutely, no doubt about that. But I'm not sure if you do 18, then 20, then 22, and you don't have an Olympics somewhere else. That might have been a mistake in retrospect. But now it doesn't matter. As people like to say, it is what it is. The hotel, bank, brokerage, as well as the malt beverage, as they say, category is wide open. Why? Because the money's not there and because these sponsors decided not to do it. So if we have a good Olympics in the future that seems to turn the branding around, we always talk about Rio and Sochi is in the negative way. Maybe the positive way gets it. But until that time, I think on this one, you and I agree, the USOC is in deep trouble until they bring those big sponsors in. And it's like a catch-22, right? You can't get the number 3 and number 4 in until you get number 1 back, right?
Right, yeah. It'll be interesting. Obviously, they still have United Airlines. I noticed that was not off the list. McDonald's is probably their biggest sponsor. In terms, and they're still on the list. So it will be interesting to see too, does a Bank of America jump in there? Does a Chase, does Miller Lite take, advantage of this and try to take maybe the space of being sort of the American beer where Bud Light has sort of taken that over in recent years. So it'll be interesting to see what other sponsors they get, because they're going to have to get somebody to stock the USA house full of beer.
Stock the USA House full of beer. That's what it's all about. You are certainly a worldwide, world-renowned international expert on drinking beer across the globe. And for that, we appreciate your expertise.
Hey, anything I can do to add to this podcast, I try to do by drinking my way across the globe.
Let's go closer to home. Roger Goodell coming under heavy scrutiny for his choice to attend the NFC Championship game instead of the AFC Championship game. A lot of people say he can't be in two places at once, and this is the final game at the Georgia Dome. Other people say he's hiding. What do you say?
I say he's hiding because he went to the Georgia Dome for the divisional round against the Seahawks, and it's not like the Georgia Dome is Wrigley Field or Lambeau Field. It's the Georgia Dome, and they're building a brand new, go there for the divisional round. Or, you know what? Fine, you can't be in two places at once. Obviously, you can't do that. I fully understand that. So maybe rather than going to the Falcons-Seahawks game for the divisional round and you want to go to that Georgia Dome, then come to Foxborough for the game against the Houston Texans and then head to Kansas City like he did for the Sunday night game. It just doesn't make any sense. He's clearly putting his head in the sand over this over Deflategate and not wanting to face the Foxborough crowd. He hasn't been to New England in 2 years. And you know what? My problem with it is this was on your watch. You won too, right? At the end of the day, Roger Goodell, you won the case. Tom Brady served a suspension. The Patriots got their draft picks taken away, and they were fined $1 million. So you won. You have no reason to run and hide, but you're afraid to face the fans. You're afraid that someone's going to, chant Roger Goodell sucks or probably far worse things at a football game.
Far worse.
Far worse. But now this is going to be a focal point of Super Bowl week. So we're going to have 2 weeks of run up now to this huge game, which should be about the game between the upstart Atlanta Falcons and the, always there year in and year out New England Patriots. But now off to the side, there's going to be all these conversations about what happens if the Patriots win. And Roger Goodell has to hand that Super Bowl trophy to Robert Kraft, and he has to stand next to Tom Brady. And, what is the drama going to be like? To me, it's cowardly, and it's also somewhat selfish. Like you're somehow finding a way once again to take away from something. And trust me, I am a Packers fan through and through. I'm not a Patriots honk. I do not, I'm not going to lay myself down in front of a train to save Bill Belichick or Tom Brady. But I just, everything Roger Goodell does to me is a PR disaster, and this is another one.
I find it ironic that people are accusing him of stealing the limelight by basically staying away, but yet it deflects it for a couple of weeks, and that's exactly right. Dan Shaughnessy, who we both know, and he's a gifted writer, what's the magnitude of this? There was an article, I guess, over the weekend in one of your papers saying that it's not Salman Rushdie hiding from the followers of Ayatollah Khomeini to even elevate it to this level. Is it just a guy who ought to come to a game and he doesn't come, or is it a lot more than that?
Oh, it's more than that, because, this is the guy who suspended the quarterback of the New England Patriots, probably not going to be the MVP of the league, but certainly could be the MVP of the league. Someone with a squeaky clean record prior to this, he suspended him for 4 games for essentially doing 67 and a 65. And people here are pissed about it, and they feel as though that the league itself has something out for New England. That ever since Spygate, even though if you really look back at Spygate, the NFL kind of gave the Patriots a little bit of a break. They gave them pretty much a slap on the hand, moved on, everything moved forward without too much consequence. But now people feel like this is Roger Goodell making it up for all the other 31 teams in the league. And so Patriots fans here have taken it very personally.
And by the way, who knows? Don't get Jeff Lurie, the owner of the Eagles, going on Spygate either. If remember that Super Bowl. So there's a lot built into this, and there's a lot of drama. What do you make of him moving his big time league press conference from the normal Friday day to the Wednesday? Some people say he's doing it because less people will be in town. What do you think?
That's possible, but I would say even when you move it, it's pretty easy to shift a flight. And I think most journalists will be there in time for, I've been hard on Roger Goodell on this. I'm not necessarily sure I buy into the conspiracy theory that he's trying to avoid more press on this, because I think, again, for the most part, the true NFL writers who have to be there to cover the lead up to the game, which most NFL writers will be there for, they're there probably no later than Monday night. So I'm not going to – that I think might just be more that it actually might get more attention because it's not on a random Friday when people are maybe traveling down to Houston or have sort of mailed it in already for the weekend. I actually think Wednesday's a bigger news day.
Final issue on this one, as somebody who is obviously a sports fan and intellectual about the game, but also has some passion, whether it's Patriots or not, do you think it is possible for the league to overtly influence the outcome of a game that happens on the field if they wanted to? Parentheses, we don't know if they want to, but is it even possible for them to say something to a ref and say swallow your whistle or not, or is that just fantasy?
No,
well, what do you think?
It's happened in the NBA, right? I mean, hasn't it? I mean, now that was more tied to gambling, but sure, these are human beings. Of course it's possible. I mean, look at what's going on in our political system right now. To even for 1 second think that it's not possible for someone who's in a high position of power to influence those who work for them to say and do what they want them to say and do, I think then you're sticking your head in the sand. I don't know that it would happen. It would be pretty obvious, I think. But if I'm a Patriots fan and there are a lot of questionable calls going in the direction and going for Atlanta, I think you have every reason to be skeptical. And I think you have every reason to keep a very close eye on everything that takes place leading up to the Super Bowl, because I think it is Roger Goodell's worst nightmare to have the Patriots win on Sunday, February 5th.
Well, that is a very interesting concept, and it's not just, by the way, those who think the lunar lander was filmed in the back lot of a Hollywood studio. There's some reality attached to this quite clearly, and we'll just have to happen to see. We'll watch and see very carefully what the perception is, if not the reality. We'll link up the stats and see what the overall penalties are, and then see where it goes. I think that the Patriots have one easy way to quiet this all down, which is to win the game. Which
yes, that would silence all critics. Yes.
Silence all critics. We'll see. Take the week off from you next week, and we'll see you at the Super Bowl in a couple of weeks. Thanks, Brenny.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Rick.
Well, that's our show for today, ladies and gentlemen. Big NHL weekend, big Super Bowl run-up, big NBA getting ready for their deal, and NASCAR beginning in just a couple weeks in Daytona. We'd like to thank Trenny Kusnerick for her regular insight, and Sean Henry, the president of the Predators, telling us how it's done in Nashville and how it will be done, the NHL All-Star Game in LA. If you want to join us on Stitcher, Google Play, Audio Boom, and subscribe to our iTunes feed. Join us once again next week when we go Beyond the Scoreboard.
Wingstop lives flavor, and you crave it. That's why we've created the Boneless Flavor Fix for you and your crew. 20 boneless wings, 4 flavors, 2 fries, 2 dips, and 2 cold drinks for just $20. Whether it's lemon pepper, Louisiana rub, or atomic, finding your flavor combo is easy, but deciding who you're going to split it with, that's a different story. The Boneless Flavor Fix. Just $20 for a limited time at Wingstop. The wing experts. Prices and participation may vary. See local restaurant for details.